This case started on February 20th of 2009. The underlying homicide, double homicide, occurred anywhere between 8:16 to roughly 9 o'clock. The investigation lasted a total of roughly 16 to 17 hours. The result was the arrest of an 11-year-old child who's now seated with us today, who's been exonerated. And the case proceeded for, as I said, 9.5 years. From that moment throughout today, there have been two things that have been consistent by the defense. One is that we have, and I have personally and professionally, always expressed my sincerest, heartfelt condolences and compassion for Kenzie Houck and the loss of her life and her fetuses. There are many victims in this case, and I always expressed my condolences and sympathy and compassion for them. The second thing that I consistently have represented throughout these 9.5 years is a staunch and certain belief and conviction in Jordan Brown's innocence. No one in this room, including the people seated with me, other than perhaps Chris and Steve, understand the facts as well as I do. We believe that there was a rush to judgment, and we also believe that he was the casualty of a system that broke down. And I believe that Jordan has been unfairly and unjustly crucified by the media in this case, and I believe that the media has fueled the legal developments that occurred over the course of the 9.5 years. It was this past Wednesday, July 18th of 2018, a resounding victory for the defense, an acceptance and an agreement on what we've been saying for day one, that this case should have never gone to trial and that Jordan should have been exonerated. Our Supreme Court unanimously, 5 justices concurred, ruled not the backup argument, but the primary argument that the case, the evidence, the conviction was not supported by sufficient evidence, and that Jordan, instead of getting a new trial, should be outright acquitted and discharged from any further punishment. And that's precisely what our Supreme Court did by opinion filed this past Wednesday, July 18th. We are not here to flaunt anything. We're not here to gloat. We're not here to brag. We are here to simply let you see Jordan, to see that he's grown into a young man, and we can all vouch for his intelligence and his responsibility. How he does it, I don't know, but he harbors no ill feelings or malice. I believe that, I don't believe, it's a fact that Jordan and his father, Chris, are also victims of this horrific, heinous crime. We are proud with the result we obtained. We are heartbroken for the loss. We are mystified as to why the true killer has not been investigated or apprehended, and we would hope that the Commonwealth, despite the delay in time, can reopen their investigation so that this family, including the victims seated to my left and right, can have some justice.
And there are many people who probably to this day who are relatively uninformed about the case, may look at it and said, well, that kid escaped on a technicality, or our system failed again and allowed this convicted killer to go free. I can assure all of you that that's not the case. It's unfortunate that it took this long. It's unfortunate that Jordan had to endure what he's had to endure to get to this point. But as Dennis said, Jordan has been an extraordinarily strong young man, has hung in there with us, has done everything that he's been asked to do, and has put his confidence in us and his faith and love in his father, who's been unbelievably supportive throughout this whole process to get us to where we are now.
You made it clear that Jordan Brown is not going to speak, but can you, on his behalf, convey anything of what his reaction was on hearing of this verdict and anything that he's conveyed to you that you can tell us about his thoughts about his future?
Well, I can tell you that, and I don't want to divulge conversations that Jordan and I have had, and I will say too, what a pleasure it's been to be able to spend time with Jordan, not in custody, not under the control of the authorities, whether that be juvenile probation or sheriffs, and be able to just kind of talk about how his life's continuing to move. You know, Jordan, I think probably the biggest relief for Jordan was the day that he got to walk out of placement and be home with his family. Obviously, you know, Jordan's still a young man, and I don't know, fully appreciates the gravity of this decision in terms of how it impacts the rest of his life, although I think that's probably starting to set in. But, you know, he's remained, it's funny, he's remained incredibly positive and motivated, and has been taking all the steps on his own the last couple of years to kind of move forward and make future plans, reestablish relationships. So it's a tremendous relief, and I suspect it will probably take a little bit of time still before the real magnitude of what's happened and how that's going to impact the rest of his life was implicated by this verdict, so, excuse me, this opinion, so.
He's a strong kid, doing his own thing, going to college, working, and he has friends, and so I think he's going to be pretty much treated respectfully and deferentially.
You mentioned college. Can you tell us a little bit about his future plans?
Computer science, he'll be a sophomore here, starting back up the end of August, beginning of September, and information, not technology, information business. Systems.
Okay.
He spoke.
As any parent could imagine, it's something I wouldn't wish upon any other parent out there. It's been a long road. As far as getting news of the exoneration, it was kind of bittersweet, so to speak. Overwhelmed with joy, but still full of sorrow, knowing that you know, we really won't have closure with our loss. So good to have Jordan back, have him home. Of course, he's been home, as you all know, for a couple years now. But to have the ability to put this behind us and move on, that was our main goal.
How's Jordan doing?
He's doing great. Doing well in school. He's no issues whatsoever.
How does your son get back his youth though? I mean, I guess, I know that you spent a lot of time with him, but I mean, he didn't get to do a lot of the things that normal young people get to do. And do you think that's had any impact on him?
Well, can you get that back? That's the question. I think the answer in short is no. But I think what matters most is moving on from this day forward and what you do, you know, from this day on. It's been a rough road for everybody involved. And I think we've all learned a lot of lessons in the last 9 years. So I think that, you know, taking that, using it, moving on.
Mr. Brown, you've stood by your son through the whole process, and with what you described as a sort of critical public, I mean, did you ever feel harshly judged by neighbors, the public?
You know, I don't think that I really, I mean, obviously there's people out there that are gonna have point of view other than ours and opinions that maybe don't agree with what we feel or believe, but you know, you'd be surprised. I think overwhelmingly the majority of what I've run into was support and sympathy. You know, in our community where we live, it was overwhelming. You know, people that know Jordan, people that knew Jordan from birth on, they from day one have supported us and believed in his innocence, and they haven't wavered from that. So, you know, that's been pretty good, you know, help getting us through to this point. At the end of the day, if anything positive should come of this, I would hope that it's maybe the higher ups take a look at this juvenile system and how broken it is, and aspects that need to be fixed, you know, areas of concern. And I can I could sit here and tell you stories over the last 9 years that would just make your head spin. And you know, at times it was like a nightmare that my kid was involved in this system. But I hope that things are learned, taken from this, and a lot of work is done to fix it. In terms of the time, for me, the thing most frustrating, and I often go back to day one where you know, Jordan was taken from his bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and placed in an adult jail. And I remember at that point in time, Dennis and I would go over and just try to keep him in, you know, positive spirits, and we're working on getting you out of here, we're working on getting you home. And that turned into 2 weeks later driving to another facility in Beaver County. Then it went to Erie, where I drove every day for 3 years, 200 and some miles round trip to be there for 4 hours a day with my son. You know, days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months. Before you know it, you're looking at 3 years. 3 years he was warehoused at a facility that's equipped for a 28-day turnover. It's a county facility. There's no reason that a child should have been placed there for 3 years. Those are things in the system that need to be addressed and need to be fixed. And you go from those hours, weeks, you know, days, weeks, months into years, and here we are 9 years later. Half of his life he has spent in this system to get to our final day today. You know, that to me is an issue. It's an issue. I think my hope for my son at this point in time, the biggest thing is that, you know, when people Google Jordan Brown, you bring up that mugshot of that night when he was 11 that was leaked from the Lawrence County Jail, and you see the headlines of, here's the 11-year-old boy who committed this crime. I would rather it be you open up in Google and you see, here's this young man who has, above all odds, come out of this okay, holding his head up high, doing great, and oh, by the way, has become a victim of, you know, being falsely accused and later having to be exonerated. You know, a lot of damage is done to Jordan in those aspects, and you know, you Google his name and it's not good. So we're hoping to maybe change that. You know, that's what I hope for him down the road in the future. As far as everyday life and where he's going to be 20, 30 years from now, there's no doubt in my mind he's going to be a productive member of society. He's going to do great things. He's got good things coming, friends. And I got to tell you, you know, we owe everything to these two. It's unbelievable what Dennis has put into this. You know, from day one, never wavering. His support, the hours, everything he's done, never giving up on Jordan and always believing in him and his innocence. I thank God for these two every day.